Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The way my brother-in-law started showing up uninvited. My mother-in-law's cold smile during board meetings. My wife growing distant. But you don't see betrayal when you're living it. You just see Tuesday. Then came that Monday morning when everything shattered. My name is James Griffin. I'm 46 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years as Chief Financial Officer of Titan Forge Industries, a company that manufactures industrial automation equipment. We build the machines that build other machines. It's honest work, profitable work, and I'd helped grow this company from a regional supplier into a national operation worth $300 million annually. That Monday morning started like any other. I arrive at our Pittsburgh headquarters at 6:30, coffee in hand, briefcase heavy with quarterly reports. The underground parking garage was mostly empty at that hour, just the way I liked it. Quiet. Time to think before the chaos of the day began. I was checking emails on my phone when I heard the engine. Deep, powerful, unmistakable. A Bentley Continental GT, midnight blue, rolled past me and pulled directly into my parking spot. The spot with my name on it. Reserved, J. Griffin, CFO. The door opened and Derek Kim stepped out. My wife's younger brother. 38 years old, with all the arrogance of someone who'd been handed everything and earned nothing. 6 months ago, he'd been selling timeshares in Florida. Now he held the newly created title of Director of Business Development at Titan Forge, a position that materialized after his mother Margaret bought a controlling interest in the company. He was wearing a suit that probably cost $6 grand. His watch caught the fluorescent light, something Swiss and expensive. Everything about him screamed, new money, trying to look like old money. "Morning, James," Derek said, walking toward me. He pulled out his key fob, and without warning, tossed it in my direction. "Park my car, would you? I've got an 8 o'clock with the executive team." The keys arced through the air. I watched them come. My hands stayed at my sides. They hit the concrete with a metallic clatter, bouncing once before sliding under his Bentley. Derek stared at me. "Did you just—" "I'm the CFO of this company," I said, my voice level. "Not your valet." His face flushed red. "Pick them up." "No. Pick them up right now, James. I'm a director of this company. That means you report to the COO, who reports to the CEO, who reports to the board alongside me. We're not even in the same chain of command, Derek. And even if we were, I still wouldn't be picking up your keys." That's when I heard the rumble of the diesel engine. Perfect timing. The tow truck turned down the entrance ramp, its yellow lights flashing. "Elite Recovery Services," painted in bold letters on the side. The driver, a guy named Tony I'd worked with before on vehicle logistics, pulled up beside us. He climbed out of the cab, clipboard in hand. "Morning, Mr. Griffin," Tony said. Then he looked at Derek and back at me. "Got your message about the repossession. Which vehicle are we taking today?" Derek's face went from red to white. "What?" I raised my hand and pointed at the Bentley. "Start with that one. It's parked in my spot." Derek's face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, fear, then back to anger. "You can't repossess my car. That's theft. I'll call the police." "Go ahead," I said. I pulled out my phone and held it toward him. "Call them. While you're at it, explain to them how you committed loan fraud to purchase it." Tony was already circling the Bentley, taking photos with his phone, documenting its condition. He'd done this before. Professional. Efficient. Fraud? What the hell are you talking about? Derek's voice rose, echoing off the concrete walls. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a folder. "This is your loan application for that Bentley. Prestige Auto Finance, which happens to be owned by one of our subsidiary holdings. You claimed an annual income of $450,000. I pulled out a second document. "This is your employment contract. Signed 6 months ago. Base salary of $120,000. Even with bonuses, you'd be lucky to hit $150 this year." Derek snatched the papers from my hand, scanning them. His face went pale. "You lied about your income by $300,000, I continued. "That's fraud, which makes the loan contract voidable. And since you used company resources to commit that fraud, I have a legal obligation to address it. This is because you're jealous." Derek shot back. "You can't stand that I'm making my mark here, that I'm building relationships you never could." I almost laughed. Building relationships? Derek, in 6 months you've managed to alienate half the senior staff. You've submitted $60,000 in fraudulent expense reports. And you've redirected 3 major contracts to companies that pay you kickbacks. His jaw dropped. You've been spying on me. I've been doing my job. Every expense report over $5,000 requires CFO approval. Every contract over $100,000 goes through my office. You really thought I wouldn't notice. Tony had finished his inspection. Mr. Griffin, I need your signature confirming the vehicle removal. I signed his tablet. Derek just stood there, watching his Bentley get loaded onto the flatbed like it was happening to someone else. My mother is going to destroy you for this, Derek said. His voice had lost its edge. Now it just sounded hollow. Your mother should have thought about that before she installed you in a position you're not qualified for. Before she started conspiring with Charles Donnelly to manufacture reasons to fire me. His eyes widened. How did you? Email, Derek. You use company email for everything. Did you really think I wouldn't have access to board member correspondence that went through our servers? The tow truck's engine rumbled to life. Derek's Bentley sat secured on the flatbed, looking smaller somehow. Less impressive. What happens now, he asked. Now you have 2 choices. You can resign quietly today, cite personal reasons, and I'll keep the fraud investigation internal. You'll need to pay back what you owe, but you won't face criminal charges. And if I don't? I looked him directly in the eye. Then I take everything I found to the board, to the SEC, and to the district attorney. Your fraudulent loan, your kickback schemes, your expense report abuse. All of it. You'll be lucky if you're only facing financial crimes. The tow truck pulled away, Derek's Bentley disappearing up the ramp. He bent down slowly, picked up his keys from under where the car had been. You're making a mistake, he said. No, Derek. I'm correcting one. I walked toward the elevator, leaving him standing in my parking spot, holding keys to a car that was already 3 miles away. The elevator doors closed. I rode up to the executive floor alone, my heart steady, my hands calm. 8 years I'd built this company. 8 years I'd let Margaret Kim and her family treat me like a useful tool instead of a partner. That ended today. My assistant Carol was already at her desk when I reached the executive floor. She'd been with me for 6 years, sharp as a knife and twice as reliable. One look at my face told her everything she needed to know. Mr. Griffin, she said carefully, there's been an emergency board meeting called for 2 o'clock this afternoon. Margaret Kim requested it. Expected, I said. Can you get David Brennan on the phone? Tell him I need to see him before the meeting. 11 o'clock if possible. David Brennan was the best corporate attorney in Pittsburgh. He was also, as I discovered 3 months ago, while digging through old company records, Margaret Kim's former lover from 25 years back. They'd had an affair when he was a junior associate, and she was married to her late husband. He'd told me about it himself when I hired him, said it gave him extra motivation to make sure everything was handled by the book. Already called, Carol said. He's expecting you at his office at 10:30. I nodded. Pull together Derek's complete employment file. Every expense report, every email, every contract he's touched since he started. Already done. It's on your desk. This was why I paid her well. Inside my office, I found 3 folders waiting. Carol had organized everything by category. Fraudulent expenses, kickback schemes, and the email conspiracy between Margaret and Charles Donnelly. I spent the next 2 hours reviewing every detail, making sure I could defend every claim I was about to make. At 10:15, my office door opened without a knock. Elena stood there. My wife looked tired. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun. She was wearing all black, like she was going to a funeral. Maybe she was. James, we need to talk. Not now, Elena. Derek called me. He's devastated. He says you stole his car and you're trying to destroy him. I looked up from my papers. He committed fraud. I'm addressing it. There's a difference. He's my brother. He's family. And I'm your husband. Or did that stop mattering when your mother bought into the company? She flinched. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 8 years building this company, while your family treats me like hired help. What's not fair is your mother and Donnelly conspiring to fire me so Derek can take my position. Elena's face went pale. What are you talking about? I pulled out the folder, slid it across the desk. Read it. The emails between your mother and the board chairman. They've been planning this for months. Install Derek, manufacture performance issues against me, force me out. You really didn't know? She opened the folder, started reading. I watched her face change as she went through the emails. Shock, then something else. Guilt, maybe. James, She stopped, Started again. I didn't know about this. I swear. But you knew about Derek's expense reports. You knew about the kickbacks. Her silence was answer enough. Get out of my office, Selena. We need to talk about this. No. We need to talk through attorneys. I'm filing for divorce. You chose your family over your husband. That's your right. But I'm choosing myself now. She stood there for a long moment, then walked out without another word. David Brennan's office was downtown, glass and steel, expensive views. He was waiting with coffee and a legal pad covered in notes. Tell me everything, he said. I did. The fraud, the conspiracy, the emails, all of it. When I finished, David sat back and smiled. They're going to come at you hard in this meeting. Margaret has the votes to fire you, if Donnelly backs her. I know, but they're going to come at you for the wrong reasons. They'll focus on the car, frame it as abuse of power. Meanwhile, we'll be focused on the fraud, the conspiracy, the fact that a board member has been actively working to remove a sitting executive without cause. He pulled out a document. I took the liberty of drafting this. It's a letter to the board outlining what you know and what happens if they try to terminate you without cause. I read it. It was devastating. If we send this, there's no going back. James, David said gently. It became war when Margaret decided you weren't good enough. You're just finally fighting back. At 2:00, I walked into the boardroom. Margaret sat at one end, flanked by her attorney. Charles Donnelly sat at the head of the table. The other board members looked uncomfortable. Let's begin, Donnelly said. Charles Donnelly cleared his throat, looking everywhere except at me. This emergency meeting has been called to address serious concerns regarding the conduct of James Griffin, our chief financial officer. Margaret's attorney, a severe woman named Patricia Vance, stood up. Mr. Griffin orchestrated the illegal repossession of Derek Kim's personal vehicle this morning. He abused his position, violated company policy, and engaged in what can only be described as workplace harassment. I stayed silent, waiting. We have witnesses, Vance continued. Multiple employees saw the incident. Mr. Griffin humiliated Mr. Kim in front of staff, had his vehicle towed, and threatened him with false accusations of fraud. False accusations. I said quietly, you claim Mr. Kim committed loan fraud. That's a serious allegation with no basis in fact. I opened my briefcase, pulled out the folder. This is Derek's loan application for the Bentley. He claimed an income of $450,000. This is his employment contract showing his actual salary of $120,000. The math doesn't work, Ms. Vance. I slid copies across the table to each board member. Diane Fletcher, one of the independent directors, studied the documents. These numbers are significantly different. Significantly fraudulent, I said. The loan was processed through Prestige Auto Finance, our subsidiary. Company policy requires my approval for any loan over $100,000. I approved it based on the information provided. When I discovered the fraud, I had a legal obligation to address it. You could have come to the board, Margaret said. Her voice was ice. I could have. But 3 weeks ago, I sent Derek a private email offering him the chance to refinance legitimately. He forwarded it to you with a note saying I was harassing him. I have the email chain. I pulled it out, distributed copies. Margaret's face tightened. Furthermore, I continued, the car repossession is standard procedure when we discover fraud in our lending operations. If it had been any other employee, nobody would have questioned it. The only reason we're here is because Derek is your son. This is about more than a car, Vance said. Mr. Griffin has been conducting a vendetta against Mr. Kim since he joined the company. A vendetta? No, an investigation. Because Derek's loan fraud isn't the only issue. I pulled out the next folder. These are Derek's expense reports for the past 6 months. $60,000 claimed, including a $5,000 dinner in New York, allegedly with clients. I called a restaurant. Derek was there with his girlfriend. No clients present. Another document. A $10,000 consulting fee paid to Brightstar Solutions. The company doesn't exist. No employees, no website, no business operations. The check was cashed by Derek's college roommate. I kept going, pulling out receipt after receipt, contract after contract. The golf trip to Scotland. The first-class flights. The personal purchases on the company card. Mr. Griffin, Diane Fletcher said slowly, how long have you known about this? I started noticing irregularities 3 months ago. I've been documenting everything since then, trying to determine the full scope before bringing it to the board. 3 months. Margaret's voice rose. You've been spying on my son for 3 months. I've been doing my job. As CFO, I'm legally required to investigate financial irregularities. If I'd ignored this, and it came out during an audit, I could be held personally liable. The company could face fines. Charles Donnelly had been reading through the documents, his face growing darker. Margaret, did you know about any of this? My son made some mistakes with paperwork. That doesn't justify this witch hunt. Paperwork. I pulled out the final folder. Let's talk about paperwork. These are emails between you and Chairman Donnelly discussing how to manufacture performance issues against me to justify my termination. The room went silent. I distributed the copies. Watched the board members read. Watched their faces change. You've been planning to fire me for months. Install Derek in my position, despite his complete lack of qualifications. You saw my job as a family inheritance he was entitled to. Margaret stood abruptly. This is outrageous. Those are private communications. Sent through company email servers, which means they're discoverable in any legal proceeding. And there will be legal proceedings if you attempt to terminate me without cause. Donnelly's face had gone gray. James, those emails were taken out of context. Were they? Because they seem pretty clear to me. You were conspiring to remove a sitting executive to benefit a board member's family. That's a breach of fiduciary duty. The silence in the boardroom was thick enough to cut. Board members were still reading through the emails. The evidence of conspiracy laid bare in black and white. Margaret's attorney, Patricia Vance, recovered first. These documents were obtained illegally. They're inadmissible, Anne. They were obtained through legal access to company email servers. I interrupted. As CFO, I have authorized access to financial communications. There's nothing illegal about it. Diane Fletcher looked up from the documents, her face troubled. Margaret, these emails show you and Charles discussing how to manufacture performance issues against James. How to make his termination look justified when it wasn't. Those were strategic discussions about leadership transitions, Margaret said, but her voice had lost its certainty. Strategic discussions? I pulled out another document. This email from you to Donnelly is dated April 15th. You wrote, and I quote, "We need to document anything that makes James look incompetent. Missed deadlines, bad judgment calls, anything we can use. Once we have enough, we can remove him and install Derek as CFO." Charles Donnelly's face had gone ashen. Margaret, you told me James was underperforming, that the board had concerns. I'm the board. Margaret snapped. I own 40% of this company. You're a board member, Diane corrected, not the board. And this behavior is completely unacceptable. You've been conspiring to remove an executive for personal reasons to benefit your son. Richard Alvarez, another independent director, spoke up. He was a private equity veteran, tough as nails. Let me make sure I understand this. Derek Kim committed loan fraud, expense report fraud, and took kickbacks from vendors. Margaret knew about this, and instead of addressing it, she tried to remove the one person who was actually doing his job and investigating it. My son made some errors in judgment, Margaret said. James turned those errors into a vendetta because he resents our family's success. I almost laughed. Your family's success? Margaret, I helped build this company from a $20 million regional operation into a $300 million national business. I structured the deals, managed the finances, ensured compliance. And you repaid me by plotting my removal. You're being dramatic. Am I? Then explain this. I pulled out one more document. This is a memo you sent to Donnelly last month. It outlines your plan for after I'm gone. Derek becomes CFO. You install your nephew as VP of Finance. You consolidate control of the executive team under family members. I slid it across the table. You weren't just trying to remove me. You were planning a complete takeover of company leadership. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other, demanding answers. Margaret sat rigid, her face a mask of fury. Diane Fletcher banged her hand on the table. Enough. We need to address this systematically. She turned to me. James, what are you asking for? Derek's immediate termination. Repayment of all fraudulent expenses and the loan. Margaret's recusal from any personnel decisions involving executive positions. And a formal apology from this board for allowing this situation to develop. And if we don't agree? Margaret asked. David Brennan spoke for the first time. Then my client will file a wrongful termination lawsuit if you attempt to fire him. All of this evidence becomes public record. It will be in the news, it will trigger regulatory investigations, and it will damage this company's reputation irreparably. You're threatening us? Donnelly asked weakly. I'm outlining consequences, David said. You can choose war, and everyone loses. Or you can choose accountability, and we move forward professionally. Diane looked around the table. I move that we take a 30-minute recess to discuss this privately. The motion passed. I left the boardroom with David, leaving them to argue among themselves. In the hallway, David clapped me on the shoulder. You did well in there. Stayed calm, presented facts, didn't get emotional. I don't feel calm. Good. Use that. But don't show it. 28 minutes later, we were called back in. Diane Fletcher spoke for the board. We've reached several decisions. First, Derek Kim's employment is terminated effective immediately. He'll be required to repay all fraudulent expenses within 90 days. Margaret's face was stone. Second, Margaret Kim will recuse herself from all personnel decisions involving executive positions. Third, Chairman Donnelly will undergo ethics training and will face a board review in 6 months. Donnelly nodded, defeated. Fourth, the board formally apologizes to you, James, for failing to prevent this situation. I nodded. And the conspiracy to remove me ends now, Diane said firmly. You have our word. The board meeting ended at 4:30. I walked out of that room knowing I'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. Margaret's face, as she left, told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't done. Not even close. Carol was waiting in my office with coffee and a concerned expression. How bad was it? Derek's fired. Margaret's neutered. I'm still CFO. Then why do you look like someone died? Because my marriage probably did. I spent the next hour reviewing financial reports, trying to distract myself from the reality of what came next. At 6, my phone rang. Elena. I debated not answering. Then I picked up. James. Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying. Can we talk? In person. I don't think it's a good idea. Please. I'm at the house. Just give me 30 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The house we'd shared for 8 years sat in an upscale Pittsburgh suburb. Colonial style, for bedrooms, perfectly manicured lawn. I'd always thought of it as home. Now it just looked like real estate. Elena met me at the door. She'd been crying. That was obvious. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. Come in, she said. We sat in the living room, the space between us feeling like miles instead of feet. Derek's devastated, Elena started. He called me from the airport. He's leaving the country, going to Singapore to work for one of my mother's contacts there. Running away from his problems. That sounds about right. Don't be cruel, James. Cruel? Your brother committed fraud. He took kickbacks. He abused his position. And when he got caught, he tried to destroy me. But I'm the one being cruel. He made mistakes. He committed crimes, Elena. There's a difference. She was quiet for a moment. My mother wants to sue you. For defamation, for harassment, for wrongful repossession. Let her try. Everything I said in that boardroom is documented and true. She won't win. She doesn't need to win. She just needs to make it expensive and painful for you. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing a stranger. Is that why you asked me here? To threaten me on your mother's behalf? No. Her voice faltered. I asked you here because I found something you should see. She pulled out her phone, opened a folder, handed it to me. Photos. Dozens of them. Elena and a man I didn't recognize. Having dinner at expensive restaurants. Walking into hotels. Kissing in parking lots. My stomach dropped. How long? 18 months. His name is Jason Garrett. He's a venture capitalist. Works with some of my mother's business partners. 18 months. While I was working 80-hour weeks building the company, she'd been building something else. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because... She stopped, started again. Because I'm pregnant. 12 weeks. The world tilted. Is it mine? Her silence was the answer. We haven't slept together in 4 months, Elena. The math doesn't work. I know. I stood up, my hands shaking. Not from anger, from something else. Relief, maybe. This made everything simpler. I want a divorce. My attorney will send the papers to yours. We can split assets fairly, but I'm keeping this house. James, please. You chose him. You chose your family. You chose everyone except me. That's fine. That's your right. But I'm done. I walked to the door, then turned back. One question. Did your mother know about the affair? Elena's expression told me everything. She knew. She helped arrange it, didn't she? Jason works with her contacts. This wasn't a random affair. This was planned. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was. Your mother wanted me destabilized, distracted, emotionally compromised. So she set you up with Jason. How much did she pay him, Elena? Her face crumbled. 50,000, plus shares in one of her ventures. I laughed, but came out bitter. I was worth 50 grand and some stock options. Good to know my value. I left her crying in our living room and drove to a hotel downtown. I couldn't face that house again, couldn't sleep in a bed we'd shared while she was carrying another man's child. In the hotel room, I called David Brennan. I need you to handle my divorce. Elena's pregnant with another man's child. Her mother paid him to have an affair with her to destabilize me. I want everything documented. David was quiet for a moment. Jesus, James. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just help me end this cleanly. After we hung up, I sat on the hotel bed and took stock of my life. 8 years at Titan Forge. 8 years married to Elena. All of it built on sand. But I was still standing. Still CFO. Still fighting. That would have to be enough. 3 days after the board meeting, I was reviewing Titan Forge's quarterly financials when something caught my eye. A discrepancy in our offshore holdings account. Small enough that most people would miss it, but I'd built these financial systems from the ground up. I knew every number, every flow, every pattern. $2.3 million. Gone. I pulled up the transaction history, traced the transfers back. They've been happening for 18 months, small amounts at first, then larger. Always on Fridays. Always to an account in the Cayman Islands. My hands were steady as I dug deeper. The authorization signatures on the transfers looked like mine, but I hadn't approved any of these transactions. I pulled out my phone, called David Brennan. I need you in my office. Now. And bring someone who specializes in financial fraud. David arrived 40 minutes later with a forensic accountant named Sarah Mitchell. I showed them what I found. Sarah studied the transfer documents, her expression darkening. These signatures are forged. Good forgeries, but not perfect. See this loop on the G in Griffin? That's not how you sign your name. Who has access to authorization documents? David asked. Limited people. The CEO, board members with financial authority, and I stopped, the realization hitting me. And spouses who have power of attorney for medical emergencies. Elena, David said quietly. I pulled up the account information for the Cayman Islands receiving account. It took some work, but I found it. The beneficial owner was listed as EK Holdings, LLC. Elena Kim Holdings. My wife had been systematically stealing from me for 18 months. $2.3 million, embezzled through forged signatures and her power of attorney access. She was planning to divorce me anyway. I said, my voice hollow. This was her insurance policy. Make sure she walked away with cash, even if the prenup limited her settlement. Sarah was making notes. With this much money involved and the forgery evidence, this is felony embezzlement. You could press criminal charges. Do it, I said. Document everything. I want her prosecuted. David hesitated. James, she's pregnant with another man's child. The optics of you prosecuting a pregnant woman. I don't care about optics. She stole from me. She committed fraud. Being pregnant doesn't give her a pass. After they left, I sat alone in my office, trying to process the magnitude of Elena's betrayal. The affair was one thing, but stealing millions while pretending to be my wife, that was calculated, cold-blooded theft. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Mr. Griffin, my name is Agent Michael Torres with the FBI. I need to speak with you about Margaret Kim and Derek Kim. Can we meet? 30 minutes later, I was sitting in a coffee shop across from Agent Torres and his partner, Agent Lisa Park. Torres was in his 40s, sharp eyes, the kind of person who missed nothing. We've been investigating the Kim family for 6 months, Torres said. Financial crimes, potential money laundering. Your evidence regarding Derek's fraud opened up new avenues for us. What kind of money laundering? Agent Park pulled out a tablet. Show me a flowchart. Derek wasn't just taking kickbacks from vendors. He was facilitating the movement of money from overseas sources through Titan Forge accounts. We believe Margaret was using your company to clean money from illegal sources. My stomach dropped. How much money? At least $8 million over the past 2 years. Possibly more. $8 million laundered through my company, and I didn't know. They were very careful. Small amounts, routed through legitimate-looking contracts. But the vendors paying Derek kickbacks? Several of them have ties to organized crime syndicates in Eastern Europe. Torres leaned forward. Mr. Griffin, we'd like your cooperation. Full access to Titan Forge financial records. Your testimony about what you discovered. Everything. In exchange, we'll make sure the company isn't held liable for Margaret's activities. You have it. Everything you need. There's one more thing, Agent Park said. We have evidence that Elena Griffin was involved in the money laundering scheme. The Cayman Islands account, where she's been moving your money, it's connected to the same network Margaret's been using. The room tilted slightly. My wife is part of this. We believe Margaret recruited her 18 months ago, around the same time the affair with Jason Garrett started. It's possible the affair was a distraction while Elena helped move money. I thought about Margaret paying Jason $50,000 to seduce Elena. Thought about Elena's sudden interest in company finances 18 months ago. All of it clicking into place. She was never really my wife, I said quietly. She was Margaret's plant. Torres nodded sympathetically. We'll need your full cooperation on this. Elena's embezzlement charges will be federal now, not state. She's looking at 10 to 15 years. And the baby? That's not our concern. Our concern is stopping a criminal enterprise that's been using legitimate businesses to launder money from international crime syndicates. I signed the cooperation agreement right there. The FBI investigation moved fast. Within a week, they'd frozen Elena's Cayman account, seized Margaret's financial records, and started building a RICO case against the Kim family network. I was in my office reviewing subpoena documents when I found something that made my blood run cold. A name I recognized from 8 years ago. Robert Kingston. He'd been CFO of Titan Forge before me. The man I'd replaced. According to company records, Kingston had resigned after being caught embezzling funds. He'd even served 3 years in federal prison. But the FBI documents told a different story. I called Agent Torres immediately. Robert Kingston, the CFO before me. What really happened to him? Torres was quiet for a moment. How much do you know? I know the official story. He embezzled money, got caught, went to prison. But these FBI files suggest something else. Kingston was innocent. The evidence against him was planted by Derek Kim and Margaret Kim. They framed him to create an opening for their preferred candidate. The room spun. They framed an innocent man? Sent him to prison? Yes. We've known about it for 2 years, but we didn't have enough evidence to overturn the conviction. Until now. Your evidence about Derek's fraud patterns matches exactly what was done to Kingston. Same forged signatures, same fake transactions, same setup. Where is Kingston now? He got out of prison 18 months ago. Last known address is in Cleveland. He's working as a bookkeeper at a small accounting firm. Couldn't get his CPA license back because of the conviction. I hung up and immediately called David Brennan. I need you to find Robert Kingston in Cleveland. And I need you to help me make this right. David found Kingston within 2 days. We drove to Cleveland together, found him living in a small apartment near the lake. He was 53 now, looked older. Prison and injustice had aged him. When he opened the door and saw me, his face went hard. You're the one who took my job. I know, and I'm here to tell you that I'm sorry. I didn't know you were innocent. But I know now, and I'm going to fix it. I showed him everything. The FBI investigation, the evidence of the frame job, the proof that Derek and Margaret had destroyed his life to make room for their schemes. Robert sat down heavily on his couch, reading through the documents with shaking hands. 8 years. I lost 8 years of my life. My wife divorced me. My kids won't speak to me. All because of them. The FBI is reopening your case. With this evidence, they can overturn your conviction. David here will represent you pro bono. We're going to clear your name. And then what? I'm still a 53-year-old ex-con with a gap in my resume. Who's going to hire me? I pulled out an envelope. Titan Forge is going to hire you. As a special financial advisor, reporting directly to the board. Same salary you had as CFO, full benefits, and a formal apology from the company. You'll help us rebuild the systems that Margaret corrupted. Robert stared at me, tears forming in his eyes. Why? Why would you do this? Because it's the right thing to do. And because I know what it's like to have the Kim family try to destroy you. You deserve better. We all did. He took the envelope with trembling hands. Thank you. 2 weeks later, The FBI arrested Elena at her mother's estate. She was charged with embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy. Margaret was arrested the same day, along with Derek, who they tracked down in Singapore. I watched the news coverage from my hotel room. The fall of the Kim family empire, broadcast across every channel. My phone rang. My sister Amy, who I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. "James, I saw the news. Are you okay?" "Not really, but I will be. I need to tell you something." Her voice was strained. "Margaret approached me a year ago. She offered me $5,000 a month to keep her informed about you, about your mental state, your plans, your vulnerabilities." My hand tightened on the phone. "Please tell me you didn't take it." Silence. "Amy, I'm sorry. I needed the money. The farm was failing, and she said it was just family looking out for family. I didn't know what she was really doing." I closed my eyes. Another betrayal. Another person I trusted who'd sold me out. "How much did she pay you total?" $60,000 over the year." "James, I'm so sorry. I'll pay it back. All of it. Keep it." "But we're done, Amy. You made your choice." I hung up before she could respond. David found me an hour later, staring out the window at the Pittsburgh skyline. "You okay?" he asked. "My wife was a criminal. My mother-in-law ran a money laundering operation. My sister spied on me for cash." "No, David. I'm not okay. But I'm still standing. That's all that matters." For months after the arrests, I stood in the Titan Forge boardroom with a very different board of directors. Margaret was gone, facing 20 years for money laundering and conspiracy. Charles Donnelly had resigned in disgrace. 3 new independent directors had been appointed, people with actual integrity. Robert Kingston sat beside me as special financial advisor. In 2 months, the courts would overturn his conviction completely. He'd already started rebuilding the financial systems that Margaret had corrupted. "The SEC investigation is complete," Diane Fletcher announced. She'd been elected board chair after Donnelly's departure. "Titan Forge is cleared of all wrongdoing. The fines will be paid entirely for Margaret Kim's seized assets." "What about Elena?" someone asked. "She pleaded guilty to embezzlement and money laundering. 12 years federal prison. The baby was born last week, a girl. She's in foster care pending custody determination. I'd already filed the paperwork. DNA tests confirmed the baby wasn't mine. Jason Garrett's daughter, not mine." I felt nothing but relief. "Derek Kim was sentenced to 15 years, Diane continued. "He's already in federal custody. The extradition from Singapore was faster than expected." After the meeting, Robert found me in my office. "I wanted to thank you again. For everything. You deserved better than what they did to you. Still, you didn't have to fight for me. But you did." He paused. "I heard you're leaving Titan Forge." "I am. I've accepted a position as CFO at a renewable energy company in Denver. Smaller operation, but clean. Honest. No family dynasties trying to destroy me. You've earned that fresh start." I packed my office that evening. 8 years of my life in boxes. Awards, certifications, photos of achievements. The wedding photo of Elena and me stayed in the drawer where I'd left it months ago. My phone rang. "David Brennan. The divorce is final. Judge signed off this morning. You're free." Free. The word felt strange. I'd spent so long fighting, defending, surviving. What did freedom even look like anymore? I drove out of Pittsburgh 2 days later, everything I owned in my car. The city disappeared in my rearview mirror, and I didn't look back. Denver waited ahead. A new job, new city, new life. No Margaret Kim, no Elena, no betrayal. Just me, finally choosing myself. 10 months after leaving Pittsburgh, I sat in my Denver office overlooking the Rocky Mountains. The renewable energy company, Solar Tech Innovations, was everything Titan Forge had been. Transparent, ethical, focused on building something meaningful rather than just accumulating wealth. My assistant knocked. "Mr. Griffin, there's someone here to see you." Says her name is Amy. My sister. I hadn't spoken to her since I'd learned about her betrayal. Part of me wanted to tell my assistant to send her away. The other part was curious. Send her in. Amy looked different. Thinner, older, worn down by guilt. She stood in my doorway, uncertain. "James, thank you for seeing me. You have 5 minutes." I paid back every dollar Margaret gave me. 60,000. Sold the farm to do it. Sent it to your attorney last month. "I know. David told me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you for money, and I'll regret it the rest of my life. I looked at her, this woman who'd been my sister for 46 years. Why did you really come here, Amy? Because you're the only family I have left. And I destroyed that. But I needed you to know that I'm getting help. Therapy. Working on why I could betray someone I love for cash. And I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. For surviving. For rebuilding. For being stronger than any of us ever gave you credit for. She turned to leave, then stopped. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. No expectations. Just hope. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about forgiveness. About whether some betrayals could be healed or whether they were too deep to overcome. I didn't have an answer yet. Maybe I never would. That evening, I had dinner with colleagues from Solar Tech. Normal people, doing honest work, building sustainable infrastructure. No schemes, no conspiracies, no family empires trying to devour me. Afterward, I walked through downtown Denver, the mountain air crisp and clean. My phone buzzed with a text from David Brennan. Margaret Kim sentenced today. 23 years, federal prison. Derek got 17. It's finally over. Finally over. I thought about that morning in the Titan Forge parking garage, watching Derek's keys hit the concrete. That single moment had unraveled everything, exposed the rot, brought down an empire built on fraud and betrayal. I'd lost my marriage, my family, 8 years of my life. But I'd gained something more valuable. I'd gained myself back. The man who let those keys fall wasn't the same man walking through Denver tonight. That man had been trying to fit into a world that never wanted him. This man knew his worth. I pulled out my phone and texted David back. Good. Time to build something better. And that's exactly what I intended to do.